Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. I'm Greg on the training team, and today is Tuesday, March the 12th. We'll begin in just 1 minute. If you have any questions, then you can go ahead and submit them in the chat, and we'll try to talk about them. Okay, let's begin. So I've been reading through a question that's been in the chat. And this question is from Tantum. Excuse me if I mispronounced your name, but it looks like um, you have a question about how to report on the different states. So we will go ahead and let you share a little bit about what you're doing. If you can fill us in a little bit more, give me just a second. Let me make sure that you can have permission to speak. Okay. Tansung, if you're there, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you're trying to do and maybe why you're thinking you don't see the state that you'd like to see?
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yep, we can
Oh,
hear
okay,
you.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Um, I have the report with different state, and
Okay.
what I'm saying when I use a flow to execute an assignment and set the state,
Hmm.
the flow tracking put the the execute date in end time in the flow data. But for cancel, which is an option in the configuration folder,
Hmm.
it doesn't have a flow, it just have a screen, right? So when I cancel, it put the execute daytime in the start time instead of the end time. So when I go to the report, I want to put the logic to check on the end time to see if it's like exceeding 10 days of the from the current, then not to display them, hide them. And I couldn't do that logic. And I don't know why cancel put the date time in the start time in the flow tracking. And when you adding column, I didn't see that start time to pull it in as well.
Hmm.
So that's the question. Does
Okay.
it make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm following what you're saying. So you're able to see several different states, but you cannot see. Tell me the states again that you're not able to see. And it has to do with
Cancel.
it's the cancel. And tell me the
Yes.
relationship between the cancel state and the start time again.
The- Okay. On the report, I'm adding end time,
Hmm.
okay? And for item in different state, the end time show, but for cancel, it not showing because for cancel, the flow tracking put the data in the start time instead of end time.
Okay. Let me start by asking you this question. What kind of data structure are you using for the project?
The FEE, the flow
Flow
ex
execution extension?
yes.
Okay. Okay. So, let's try to replicate this a little bit if we can. So you have a report, you have things with different states. Um, Actually, this might be a little bit better example to look at. So even though this is a case entity data structure,
Mhm.
this does a really good job of showing the different states here, um, similar to a flow execution extension data structure. So let's pretend that you have different states here. And some of these states are you're able to report on, but not others. And you're not sure why. Is that sort of the simplified version of what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
The key is for cancel, why it doesn't put it in end time, but they put it in start time.
Okay. Doesn't put it in end time. Just puts in start time. So can you tell me a little bit about how you're setting your states? Are you using a step such as this set state or set entity state?
Uh, no, this has a flow, so I can
Hmm.
easily manipulate that. But
Hmm.
these is inside the data structure, and it has a folder called FEE configuration, and
Okay.
that's where I put the cancel form, and all I need to do is to put the form in the FEE configuration,
Hmm.
then it work, right? Like the type of loan configuration. What's that?
Right. So
Mm,
let's see. So you have your data type. It's a flow execution extension data structure. And
mm.
inside you've set up, tell me this part, you've set these up for what?
Now, uh, it, the application have different flows, and
Hmm.
in the flow, it's like for approve, execute, reject. It's it's okay, okay.
Okay.
But um, for the cancel action, I go to the data type, go to like configuration folder, and just
Hmm.
put a form in there. And
Hmm.
the form is cancel, and and it doesn't have a flow; it just have a form.
Okay.
And when you put that in there, it's automatically uh, bring it up, right? If you put something in travel request configuration for
Hmm.
instance,
So you're saying if, say that again,
mm,
if you were comparing it to travel request, the configuration,
yeah,
if
when
you
you
put
put a
something in there.
form in travel request,
Hmm.
then all you need to do is just put a form. You don't have a flow or anything, right?
Okay. Well, I mean, this is an example of the travel request project that you probably did in your training. And I mean, you built a flow starting with a form. In this flow, you saved this data as process data, if you remember that.
Mm,
But is this along the lines of what you're having trouble with? I feel like yours is different
no,
because you've set up states.
no. Um, For most of the state, I use it has a flow, and then I have a form and manipulate the flow and
Hmm.
set the state. So that's fine. But
Right.
what I'm saying is that a couple thing when you put it in the configuration folder,
Hmm.
you you only have the form. You only
Right.
need to create a form, and it's like view or cancel or something like that. You just
Hmm.
need a form. It doesn't have a flow. And in that
Like this
form,
example, like in this configuration folder, we've created a
uh,
form here. You don't need a flow to do this.
right? So
Hmm.
so let's say that form one is
Hmm.
to handle cancel.
Okay.
So when I click the button cancel,
Right.
okay, and and it's it's the built-in function of decision,
Hmm.
put that in the tracking data. And what I'm
Hmm.
saying is that it put it in the start time instead of an end time.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, so you're trying to. So what's the data you're trying to store? Like, so because that sounds like then there's a mapping issue there. If you click on a path, right, and then it's capturing the wrong set of data when you're creating the record, that would typically be an input mapping issue, where
Uh,
it's not grabbing a
uh,
certain thing.
okay, when you create this form, you only have two things, like
Hmm.
input data and output data. In the output data, you do capture some data, but
Hmm.
there is a flow data, but I cannot set it in there. It's automatically
Hmm.
handled
Because it doesn't capture the correct value, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
because a decision built in to handle tracking by itself, I thought.
Let me, Greg, do you mind if I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's what I'm understanding, and let me know if I'm completely off base here. Let's see, share my screen. Let's see. So how I'm understanding this, can you see my screen? Should say like Decision Studio.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Let me just create a quick flow. We're gonna say test stuff with pieces. It sounds like you're using a case indeed, correct?
No, she's using flow execution
You're using
Right.
flow
extension.
execution. Okay, cool, cool. All right, no worries.
I was just
All right,
using the, yeah, go ahead.
I got you. Okay, cool, cool. So I'm gonna create a flow execution extension real quick, just so I can have something. Let's see, test flow, test X, and we'll have this as data one, data two, just so I have something here. So how I'm understanding this as soon as this compiles, and I create a flow, right? And this is flow one. We may have a simple form, show a form, uh, create it real quick, then form stuff. And then I have a cancel, and then I have cancel, and then I have a, let's just say it's done. And then I set up this process folder. Boom, put it here. And I'm just gonna pick one of the default folders that I have for data storage. Just the cases data. We'll do test, test, extension data
Mhm.
type. And so if I build data on this, is what you're talking about here, like if I grab, select from flow, flow data, and I grab like the flow start time or end time, that's the part that's not appearing
Mhm.
and it's displaying as null. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, I see. So let me go ahead and create this and let's see. Do you know what version you're currently running on of Decisions?
I think 8, but I don't know the sub release.
Gotcha. If you can, if you, are you at your instance right now? Because if you go to the user icon and click about, I'm curious what
User
this number
icon.
is. Yeah, so top right and then
Uh-huh.
about, and then it should say platform version.
I don't about. I didn't see that.
Platform about. If not, no worries.
I didn't see that option.
Okay, no worries. That's fine.
Mhm.
Test report. Let me take a look at that user-defined type I created. So now I want to see test. And I think I called it what, data one, I think. So I have, and there, so the reason why I'm saying this because I know I grab data when I grab the flow start time. So I don't know if
Mhm.
that could be a version, like a bug in an older version that was resolved.
Oh, okay.
So what I would do is I would I would reach out to support, have them walk through your project and show them like what's going on. Um, it could be that hey, just a a minor update into a newer version might resolve this. But I know when I use start time and end time, the data appears, here.
Okay. So when you click the add in the data field, is there a start time there?
Yeah,
Mm,
and this yeah. So if I go back to my flow. So now let's go back to
uh,
my data one. Yeah, so I just grab flow's data start time, and then that will, as soon as the flow starts and runs, it will capture that information.
okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
All right, I'll pass it back over to you, Greg.
All right. So it looks like we have another question from Jace. Jace, are you still there? Let me see. Okay, Jace, I've allowed you to talk. It looks like you're still having a question about your question from last week with the download button on a form. I'm trying to retrieve the file actually from the data structure. Can you tell us a little bit more what you've done since your last question?
Yeah, I came on last week with a problem. I'm trying to have a download button be an image. The download button is on a data repeater on a form. And it's supposed to be pulling in the attachment that a user would have uploaded when they fill out like a form, and then the review form is going to display all the information that they inputted on there. On that form, we've got the data repeater with a I forget what the tool's called, like a sub dialog image button.
Mm-hmm.
And we built out a flow last week, and I couldn't get it working once I, copied it, and I realized that we have a separate data structure that is being built out once the use, like, just for the attached file.
Separate data structure for the file.
Yeah.
Okay. What type of data structure are you talking about
Um,
for the file?
it's just a simple data structure.
Okay. Um, Now, so I don't know if Jared's like rubbing his hands together because I remember he was helping you with this last week and building out
Yeah.
a flow, and I think he was still even thinking about it after your conversation. I'll see if he wants to chime in now.
So what's the what's I didn't catch what the difficulty was. It
Right.
was
I realized after we talked and I couldn't get the flow working that we actually have a separate simple data structure to house the attachment that the user uploads.
mhm.
Let me
Do
go
you,
get that tool.
yeah.
It's
So
like at the end of our main flow. It's just like a create attachment tool. Oh yeah, it just creates an entity, a simple data structure in our main flow. to where the user like uploads all the information.
Okay, so you have your own entity data structure that grabs the file. And so with that, you're trying to get that file. So okay, so the data repeater has that entity, correct?
Hmm. Sorry, let me go check on that.
Sure. And I'll give you some more color to it as you're searching for it. The reason why I'm asking is because depending on how we get, where it's that file is placed, it gives us a couple of options of what we would have to kind of grab. Let me just create a new project for this. Fetching files. Because if it's a document data type, if it's a file reference,
Yeah. So we are feeding we're feeding that simple attachment data structure to the form.
okay.
And then in the data repeater, it is pulling from that data structure. And I know how we did it before. It was like just current item in the data repeater.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we need to approach the flow a different way with the actual icon download button.
Mm-hmm. Do you have the ID of that certain item?
For which item?
The so another thing we need to determine is we have this attachment, right, data structure, and are
Yeah.
you relating it via like a parent-child relationship? Like I know like Jared's record, new hire record is tied to these 3 document IDs or vice versa.
Hmm. Yeah, I know what you're asking. I know how to fetch that ID, but then what would I be checking for?
Yeah. So I can show you some steps that we'd use. So and what I would advise is here's some test flow fetching document steps. I'll show you a couple of them. So like in the sub dialog process, we can't, if we know the ID of the document, we can fetch it by that. So there are internal services, document service. Let's see, document service where we can fetch documents by a folder ID if you're storing it by a folder, or if there's a certain ID of the document. These are also very helpful. If there's a specific URL, so depending on how it's stored, I don't know this specific information, but you can get those documents via that way. If you're good.
Sorry, are you looking into how did we fetch it inside that sub dialog flow?
Right, yeah. So it still would be the same procedure as well. Like you would leverage, that's why I asked if you have the parent-child relationship, because if you're not storing it within a folder, then you wouldn't use like get it by a folder ID. But what you would use is you could use the fetch entity step. Right. And whatever the ID of that data repeater object is that's associated with that file, you could say, hey, grab that document that's associated with this new hire ID, let's say. And so you would do it that way in the sub dialog flow. But it all depends on what that relationship is, right?
Instead of the get document data step, it would be a fetch entity step and go fetch the simple data structure.
It could be either way. Like you can do it with the get document data because then you can get the file data and then you can get the download from that. If you're using the document data structure, then you still would need to use that the get document data step.
Before or like after the fetch entity?
Yeah, or after whatever step you have.
Okay, the way it's set up right now, it's just get document data into like a get document data, load from file data, and then download file.
Okay. And so has that that process is not working? What's the error?
It's not working. The error, it stopped giving an error and now it's just does nothing. It doesn't even like break. It just doesn't respond to the click really.
Do we know
Oh wait, here we go. I clicked it a couple times and I got an error. It says error running step get document data 1 in flow. Error calling service method. Or actually, sorry, I can just drop this in the chat, maybe like the first couple of lines.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'll help me.
Is
Okay,
that
everyone. Yeah, so advocacy attachment. Okay, subdialogue for error calling method get diagnosed. Basically it's saying your file doesn't exist.
okay?
So that could be maybe there's no document attached to that record, or we need a better test record to test it. But that's what this is telling me. It's saying the document for this doesn't exist.
That shouldn't be. There is a document uploaded. Yeah, I put an attachment there, so
Okay, so we know that the document is there.
there
So
is a
then it's just
document.
failing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. What I would do is I would put a support ticket in and have a
Okay.
support technician get on the call with you, because then they can take a look at your environment, and maybe
Yeah.
there's something that I'm not seeing that would
Mhm.
clue me into it, but I know they would be able to pick up on it and be like, oh, hey, it's just this simple thing to change.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks, Jared, for all your help. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, everybody. Does anybody have any more questions? Do you want to put something in the chat, maybe? If so, go ahead. Okay, then, everyone. Well, thanks for coming to Lunch and Learn today. I hope that you learned a little bit, and I hope that if you are eating lunch, then it's delicious. And tomorrow we have Jared hosting, so you'll get to learn some more from Jared. Hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Greg.